Tommy's tats earlier and in a previous life. You know what I think about when I think of you and your tattoos is that's the reminder. Is that the reminder to you of a day gone by, of a day that used to be, so to speak, that now that you've turned your life around and focused yourself on Jesus and the work that you're doing, those tats are a daily reminder of what once was?
Yeah, yes it is. It's a reminder of who I was and where I came from. When I go into the prison or when I go into the high schools and speak, it just kind of brings up a wake up to them. Say, hey, he was with it. He's doing what we were and what we're still doing. It's also a staunch reminder when I go before civic groups. When you walk in the circles of the politicians, you're sometimes you get that eye, but it's a testimony to where I came and how somebody like myself who never cared about community, never cared about country, never cared about anything, can become engaged once they clean their life up, once they get their life in a good path. They can become an active participator of the community.
Mm-hmm. You're an example both in person and from the heart of what a person can do if they want to change their life and turn themselves around. I was asking you about one of your tats earlier, and it was like it was a symbol of a lowrider and all that. And, folks are intimidated by a lot of tattoos, when they see it. But that was a time when you felt that was important.
Yeah, it was. I grew up at a time when my uncles, were in the Vallejos, Latino circles called Pachucos, and then my brothers took over. Latino gangs are generational, and my brothers became the gangbangers of the neighborhood, and so it was something I looked at because I didn't have no other positive influence, and so tattoos was one of the allures, and I got them underneath my shirt. I'm not proud of them. I tell folks all the time, I don't got enough skin on my rear end to take them all off. I'm not proud of them. I recommend people never take them or never put them on. But here's what I can say is that I came from a time where tattoos were, only certain people had them, and now it seems like everybody got them. But I'm not proud of them. I tell people all the time, I recommend, that you don't take them. Number one, they'll mark you for life. Number two, it's a stereotype. And number three, the cops will always know who you are.
And, you're proof that, change can be made, change can happen. You can turn away and go in another direction, which you have done, which I think is good with the ministry that you are involved in. Of course, Tommy is the president of the Clarksville Ministerial Association, which elected new board members this week. And you were telling me earlier that they have gotten more active in this community, not only just here in Clarksville, but at Fort Campbell as well. Yeah,
we've taken a more active step. The Clarksville Area Ministerial Association has been around for a long time, and I was blessed to be re-elected president recently. Our board is made up of Pastor John Rankin of Extreme Ministry. He's our first vice, and then Pastor David Lee of the Korean Presbyterian Church. And then, of course, Pastor Steve Eastet, who is our secretary. He is from the Grace Nazarene. And then we got Pastor Martin of Grace Bible Church. But it's a diverse group, and we're getting involved in this community because we need to. It's estimated only 19% of the community itself goes to church on any given Sunday, is active in the church. So there's plenty of folks that need to be reached in Montgomery County. So we see it fit. And then, of course, there's that segment of population that's not counted in that, and that's the population of Fort Campbell. And these soldiers attend our churches, so we found it fit that we need to get involved more than ever, and this coming year is going to be even a more strategic year than ever for our association.
You do a lot of prison ministry, you speak to kids, obviously you're very active in the community and all aspects of the community. What is the one thing you try to tell these people that are like headed in this direction and need to be headed in that direction?
Well, I just spoke recently in Nashville on Tuesday. I had a speaking engagement before 500 school teachers, 9th grade to 12th grade, at a smaller learning community, which is a government-funded program to try to enhance and encourage teachers to go beyond the teaching abilities. And this was in metro schools, and I related to them that 30% of the next freshman class is predicted to drop out of high school. It's also, and I gave them some staggering statistics. They say that every day in America, one child or one teen is killed by gunfire somewhere in America. And so when I go and see these kids, I tell them, hey, listen, there's another out. I tell the teachers there's also another out. And I spoke this week. I told them, I said, Helen Keller said, alone I can do very little, but together we can do a whole lot. And so here's what I tell folks. I said, you can make it because I made it. I finished speaking, and the teachers were clapping and had a great time. And after I finished, it was very interesting. A guy named Kix Brooks came up from, I really don't know who
Brooks
he was.
and Dunn,
He came up and
Yeah.
he looked at me, looked at the audience, kind of said, well, can you sing? I said, no, good, because I need to sing, because we need an altar call now. But, I got to take a photo with him and spend time, and he really felt encouraged that I was doing this. But I do it, Hank, because I care. I remember when I was little, nobody came and tried to encourage me. Nobody reached out to me. And so when I became a Christian, I made it a point to go out, do gang awareness, do motivational talking and speeches, and I do that all across America now.
A lot of young people who are looking for a direction, looking for a way to go, they easily fall into groups or cliques or behaviors that are somewhat satisfying, gratifying, fun. The church has taken a lot of hits about not, doing more to keep kids not necessarily in church, but in a particular direction. As a minister, as a big church here, and very active in your ministry in your church, how do the churches become more appealing? How do they become more gratifying, satisfying to young people who are all involved in Twitter and Facebook and social networking and, all the things that they do? How do you get their attention?
Well, Billy Graham, one of the greatest evangelists of our time, he realized the change in people. See, God never changes, but the ability to reach people and the methods to reach people. And he couldn't stay with George Shea singing the old gospel hymns, but he brought in a new generation. He brought new contemporary Christian artists to the forefront. They began to sing. He brought in different venues to his evangelistic outreach. And so that's what the church has got to do. The church got to venture out and don't be afraid to experiment and try something that's out there. There was a time that Christian music, rock was looked down on. Christian rap. Every time something new comes out, the church automatically criticizes it instead of knowing that these are the kids that are being reached. And so the church has got to go out there and reach these kids. These kids are computer savvy. They're technically smart. Most of the kids have MySpace. Most of the kids have Facebook. And so you got to be able to reach this generation with a new method. I believe kids need to be heavily involved in church. It's not just a gym. It's just not athletics anymore. It's just not vacation Bible camp. It's not. There's ways to reach these kids. And here's what you do. You go in there and you sit down and get to know these kids. Don't become their best friend, but become somebody they can confide in, somebody they can lean on. And you reach them with the gospel. The gospel never fails. The gospel is not. But then also, we at Faith Outreach, we realized there's other things. Last night we had a celebration for the end of school year. We brought the kids in together, gave them a great lesson, fed them, and we talked about the gospel. And then here's what we got. We got game systems that are in there. We make sure that these game systems are not none that's going to be that's going to generate any violence and everything. But we also know that these kids are computer savvy, so we teach them a lot of computer skills. You reach them with another method, Hank.
I'm always curious when I visit with teachers and our director of schools and folks who are heavily involved in the kids and our youth and so forth today. How do you get their attention? The attention span seems to be I don't know. It doesn't seem. It's I got my phone, my texting, my all this that's going on. So getting their attention and whatever grabs their attention, they seem to gravitate to. So you see a lot of kids that, in fact, we had about a week or so ago. We have this lunch promotion where we take folks to lunch from the morning show, and we had several teachers with us. In fact, we had a teacher with us yesterday. But anyway, they were talking about how, as being a teacher for so long, they'll see kids that have come up through the school system that they have now seen in the news, and how heartbreaking that is. That, oh, I had him or I had her, and he was arrested or he is in jail or he's gone for 10 years or whatever. And of course, anyone who's ever gotten to know you, your life story is it's a chilling story, and it just hurts their heart so bad when they see the kids that they knew as sweet innocent little kids that are now doing time.
Well, Hank, here's the truth of it. When I go talk to these kids, I give them reality. I show them pictures of my life. I show them newspaper articles. I show them obituaries. I show them reality of where I came from. I show them a picture of a prison riot where 33 inmates were killed, and my brother was cut with a meat cleaver in his head and hands by rival gang members, yet he lived to tell. I bring reality to these kids. And here's the reality is that Years ago, I got here in 1990, and I went straight to the then police chief, and I said, listen, I'm here to offer my services for gang awareness. And they said, there's no gang issue. I said, no, there's not, but I like to go ahead and do a prevention measure. There's 3 steps to talking about gangs, and it's called prevention, intervention, and you hate to do the last one, called injection. And that's where you got to inject them into a program. You got to send them to Columbia. You got to send them. You got to incarcerate. But here's what I tell people all the time: our teachers are there to teach, but they end up babysitting. They end up parenting. And so here's the danger of doing that, is that you take away from other kids. And so here's what I'm going to tell you: these kids, this generation today, is it's a different animal. Has for lack of better terms, is they want to be talked to, but at the same time, some of them simply want to be hugged and loved. We have a program called ROCK, Reach Out to Clarksville Kids. Been in the city for faith outreach for 16 years from our church. We go into the inner city, Summit Heights, Lincoln Home, Ramble, and we go do ministry. We do sidewalk Sunday school. We just don't go on Easter, Christmas, and occasional. Kids look in the inner city, look at consistency, and then that's when they begin to trust you. Well, I was in the jail ministry, and this one kid, after I finished ministry, he comes up to me. He goes, "I remember you," and I looked at him. I said, "Huh?" He goes, 10 years ago, you reached out to me. You told me about Jesus, and I didn't listen. My brother went to college, and I'm going 10 years to the joint." So here's the thing: one listened, one didn't. Because you see, some will take it serious, and you can do all you can, but it's the effort that we don't put forth.
We've had a busy week this week. We're going to talk about that. The Chamber Dinner, you were also one of those nominated for the Community Commitment Award. It could have gone to any one of you. Today you've got a big event over at Riverview Inn. We want to talk about all that as well. Tommy Vallejos is our guest. If you don't know Tommy, you need to know Tommy, and we're glad he came by. We'll take a break and be back right after the morning. Tommy Vallejos is our guest this morning. We appreciate him, and if there ever was a busy little beaver in his community, it's Tommy Vallejos, who I guess I've just gotten to know Tommy over the last couple of years. Have you ever written a book? You need to write a book.
Well, I had several people approach me to write a book of my life story, and I think it's in the foreseeable future.
It's a toe-curling story.
Yeah, it is.
It really is. And we've gone over that, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on that this morning. I want to move forward with what you and the community is doing. This week, you mentioned you spoke to a bunch of teachers. You also had an opportunity to, you've done 2 or 3 interviews on NPR. This week, focusing on the suicides out at Fort Campbell. All of us have military connections here in this town, friends, family, or whatever. And the disturbing news, which is not new, I mean, this was like the last time they came home. The number of suicides were alarming. But now, this week, it was revealed that Fort Campbell leads the Army in the number of suicides. General Steve Townsend gathered the troops this week and was encouraging them, and so on and so on. You were asked to talk about it on NPR. You have been involved with counseling of troops, encouraging troops through your church. What else? What's going on? What is happening? How come the government's not getting this vibe that, man, this is getting to be too much for these troops?
Well, what gets me is when I look at the paper and you see all the bloggers, and I really don't like to read these blogs because there's so many vindictive and ugly comments that come out of there. And when you see the comment, well, they're soldiers, they signed up for it, or they should suck it up. Well, that's the mentality that's driving them, because when you go to rotate 4 or 5 times to war, our Vietnam vets didn't rotate this many times out there. We're rotating, you're fighting 2 different enemies in 2 different regions, and so when your soldiers rotate 4 or 5 times into combat, and then you're asking me to act normal for 1 year and then get into combat mode the next year, it's a mental breakdown at the end of the day. Here's what I'm going to tell you is, when I told NPR, when they called me up and asked me if I had a comment, I said, after 21 years in the military and after sitting down with soldiers and their families and the breakdown of their marriages and drama in their family, there was times I couldn't counsel them, because I would give them biblical counseling, and then when it came time to that mental breakdown, they needed additional help that I couldn't provide, and I wasn't qualified. And so when I see that, if I see it once, okay. If I see it twice, okay. But when I've seen it 10 or 15 times, we need to respond, and I think we responded. I can tell you that I will never badmouth the military, because they did me good. It pulled me out of the mess I was in. But I will say this: we got to react quicker when we see the hurting soldier. The answer is not to get soldiers at the post theater and as the lead enlisted man yell them down. They need to suck it up and come to your grips. You're a soldier. Well, I was an infantry guy. I did 3 years as a drill sergeant, and let me tell you something. There's a way to treat folks and a way to respond to something such as stressful as this. And so I've only went to combat once, but these guys have been 4 or 5 times, and they're seeing the level of combat that I've never seen. And even some of the Vietnam vets are saying, I went 1 time and that was enough. They're going 4 and 5 times.
This is not just an issue that's going on out here in Fort Campbell.
No.
Now it's happening overseas during deployment. We get notices all the time from the Pentagon about the passing of a soldier, non-combat related, which is how they will report a suicide, so to speak. But share with us a little bit about. A lot of us understand the military lifestyle. A lot of us have been around it our whole life. We understand the stress, the strain. A mother or a father has to be both for a period of time, not just women. But when they come back, and then you add on the fact of the economy that we've been going through, for about the last 6-8 months to a year. What's happening when they come back home?
Well, the military has its military support group. But when these soldiers come back, they're integrated slowly. They got to go through, they go through back through reports, and they draw down, and they go through all their briefings and everything. But then here's what really happens: we weren't addressing the central issue of the mental breakdown, because now you're asking me to integrate back into my family. And so what we were lacking is, do I hand over reins? Okay, honey, I've been taking care of these kids for these years. Now it's your turn to discipline. It's your turn to take over the fight. It's your turn, your turn, your turn. And they built a honey-do list of over a year. And here's what we forget: male and female soldier come back, and now they're feeling relieved. They can breathe. They don't have to look around. And here's what happens: we're expecting them to become fathers and mothers with normacy. They can't return to normacy when they've been mortared. They can't return to normacy, when they hear a tailpipe pop. They can't return to normacy as easy as we've thought, because now it's 3. It's not once that I've been to war. It's not twice. It's 3 to 4 times, and coming up. Now these are soldiers who are doing what the military, that's our government. They're not complaining, and they're doing their job. But myself, as a pastor, as a leader, I see it, and I see the strain on the community. If I go and I tell the military as an actor that I'm having issues, you know what happens? First thing, my weapon's taken away. Suddenly, something is like a scarlet letter. You're been labeled, and just like this soldier was.
That's got to be hard.
It's got, because you're labeled now. Okay, hey, people will say, "Oh, he's a little off." Hold on, I'm having issues. And so, there's got to be a leniency, because now we just had 2 generals that come forward that they're saying, I've had this. One general out of Fort Carson, his son killed himself, and then his other son got killed in a IED. But he stated that he wants to make sure that his soldiers know they can come and seek mental health.
We don't remember, maybe I shouldn't say that, but we don't remember this after Vietnam. My generation, I don't remember the issues. Now I remember the Agent Orange issue. I remember there were issues with the Vietnam soldiers, whatever the war in Vietnam. But boy, this is a lot of us civilians. A lot of us here are thinking, man, you're home. That's a great thing, man. Fast food, freedom, sit on the deck, do some grilling, play with your kids. Everything ought to be great. But you bring up issues that a lot of us don't realize, in that you come home and mama's been doing everything. How do you transition that? Kids haven't seen you. In some cases, they haven't even seen their new baby. That's very overwhelming.
What do you do when you come home and your wife or your husband tells you, "I want a divorce"? I've been defending your freedom. I've been fighting against the enemy who don't care about freedom, who doesn't care about America, doesn't care about you. All I know is you've invaded their country. Now you're asking me to return to normalcy. Now maybe you're telling me you want a divorce. Maybe we're bankrupt now. A lot of things could have happened during the period I was gone. And so I had a friend of mine. We used to call him a flashback pace. They called him flashback because during Vietnam, they said he said Vietnam would affect him every time he'd go off. Oh, he's having a Vietnam flashback.
Right.
And so during my time in the military, there was a lot of Vietnam era. So there was thousands, hundreds of thousands, and many of them were my first sergeants and platoon sergeants. And many of them, that I talk to now would tell me this. We didn't go through this a lot. We had an enemy that was hidden in the jungle, hidden in the holes. But now this enemy is totally hidden. They're IED. They're being attacked, and they're going back repeatedly. So they're being yet they're being welcomed when they come back. But our own military at first wasn't welcoming the overtures of mental health or mental hygiene. At Faith Outreach, our military support group, we took it to another level. We established one within our church. We give classes while the soldiers are gone, how to integrate your husband or your wife. We talk to them about the stress level, how to handle the stress. And as the Ministerial Association, we're encouraging our churches to establish programs, because these soldiers they're not all going to go to the chaplaincy, they're not all going to go to but they're part of our community.
They're not all going to go to a church.
No, and here's the thing and they're not all going to go to a church. And so what is the answer? So the answer is we got to come together as a community and back up our military base and tell them they're a vital part of this community, and we can't neglect that fact. But at the same time, we've got to address it. And how do we address it? We support the base. Then as a community, if they come to us, we support them by providing them counseling that's so readily available at a biblical level. And if we can't handle it at a biblical, because here's the truth, they're not all going to want to come and hear about Jesus. And I realize I'm a realist. So I got to provide them with somebody who's going to be able to sit them down, talk to them, and let that stress level come down.
Tommy Vallejos, our guest. We've got lots more to talk about. HOPE, the Hispanic Organization for Progress in Education, all the work they do. There are some women's health screenings going on at Riverview Inn today. It's a big day. We'll have more details on that coming up. Here's the number, 64 degrees and sunny. We're back after this. 35 our time. Coming up at 9 o'clock, City Councilman Mark Harris will join us. And we look forward to visiting with Mark. We've not had Mark by in some time. So if you have calls or comments about city issues or want to chat with Mark Harris, City Councilman Mark Harris will be here at 9. Tommy Vallejos is our guest, and I got to share again the story of how Tommy and I first met. And it was by phone call on the Bone Show one day about what was it? Illegal aliens. It's Latinos, not illegal aliens.
Documented.
Documented. That's
Undocumented.
undocumented. Yeah. And I'm confused because one of my best friends on the planet is Chuck Edwards, obviously, and he's an African American, or either that or he's got a great tan. And I keep asking him. I'll ask him every week. Okay, now what's correct? Afro American, black? What is it just changes. So when you and I first met, it was illegal aliens, or it was Mexicans, or whatever. And you set me straight, and that's how we got to. So is it different this week?
No, we're good.
Am I good? Am I all right? Latino? Is our own document?
Yeah, we got it.
Anyway, Tommy is a real fireball, and this week at the Chamber's annual dinner, he was one of the number of folks who were being considered or was nominated for the Community Commitment Award. And any number of those folks who were nominated, Jim Durrett was given the award. But Tommy's very involved not only in the community, not only with children, not only with prisons and inmates and so forth and so on, but Fort Campbell. And his life story, you probably couldn't live to be 100 years old and finish your work, could you?
No,
Finish what you set out to do after wasting those years in gangs and in crime and in drugs and doing all the things that you wish you hadn't done.
I really couldn't. I told the story in the past few days about when I was little. We had a little older white woman that would come to our neighborhood in our barrio, that was gang infested. It was drug ridden. It was just totally chaotic. But she would come every summer to invite us to Vacation Bible Camp, and I only wanted to go because they had Kool-Aid and cookies, what we didn't have at home. And I remember her taking me to the local Baptist church for Vacation Bible School, and never did I envision I would become a pastor. But here's what I told the group last night at our banquet was, because of the seed she planted in me as a little child, today I'm spreading the gospel, because somebody refused to allow kids like myself to go without the word. And so I'm indebted to her, and so here's what I do. There's so much making up to do that I don't feel there's enough. I've done enough. There's more that I need to do. And so that's the drive in me that keeps me going. I tell the story that when I retired from the military, I wanted to go back to El Paso, New Mexico area, to the land of enchiladas, to reach the Mexican people, to reach out to them. And my pastor called me up in Germany and said, hey, God's told me to call you. You need to come back. Our church is growing, faith outreach. And I said, well, I'm sorry. I'm already going to retire to Fort Bliss. And she said, well, I'm just doing what God told me to do. Excuse me. And so I said, okay. And I hung up. And I told my wife, "Ta loca. She's crazy. I'm going back to El Paso." Well, 3 weeks later, my first sergeant come in. He says, two things for you. Congratulations. You've been promoted. The second thing, you're not going to Fort Bliss. You're going to Fort Campbell. And I say, Pastor Ginger. So here I am. And here, I'm glad that I did come, and I tell people I was the first Mexican hillbilly got here in 1990. Of course, there was others like the Macias and other, but here's what I did. I made this my home, and I took ownership of what this is my community, and that's what drives me, Hank.
Tommy Vallejos, our guest, we were talking earlier about his work. One little piece of the work being done to support our troops, which there's so much of that goes on around here. And this week we learned, and we probably all read the stories and the statistics about the number of suicides out at Fort Campbell and so forth. And I think most of us, as we said earlier, don't realize, hey man, you're home for a while, chill out, everything's good. Everything's not good, apparently, not with all. And I'm not saying that they all have challenges like any family, but we're going to get to know more about what we can do. And it's a very delicate situation. In fact, I have friends who are psychiatrists, who are psychologists, who have closed their practice to contract at Fort Campbell for these troops and counseling troops and so forth. I mean, Tommy, when is this going to end? I mean, do you have any idea of when we're going to realize, these people need a real break? They need a real break.
Well, they do. They did a 3-day stand down that made national news. It was on CNN. And when Robin Young from NPR called me up and asked me if I'd talk about it, here's one thing that I'll tell people is that I can never come down on the military, because the military was a blessing to me, and I support our military. Saying that, this is what I would like to say is that the end will come when our men will start rotating out, get back to really regroup, and for a longer stretch of time. But that's not going to happen till we reduce our troops and draw down totally in Iraq, and we can concentrate in Afghanistan. And it'll possibly go from 1 year rotation to probably every 2 years rotation, and that'll be some stress reliever. But here's that being said, now we got to really look at what the problem is. How can we attack it? And then the military's got to allow the civilians to integrate and see what part we can do. Bring the chaplaincy in with the outside and say, as churches, and we're doing that more now because we got chaplains that are involved in our ministerial association. And then also there's the civilian part, those that don't go to a church. Where can we provide outside help that they feel is needed? Some of our kids that are their mother or father is a military soldier. Some of those kids are sent to Lincoln Trails, which is a home for treatment for kids in Radcliffe, Kentucky. There's the aspect, we're not even talking about the kids that are being impacted, because when they see dad, they want to hug dad or they want to hug mom, but that hug is not being returned because there's something lacking. So we got to realize, Hank, that this is impacting a whole generation.
Are there other bases that you know of that are we don't hear much about it? Obviously, we're concerned about all of our troops, obviously, but we're more connected to Fort Campbell. But are there other bases that are having these issues? I talked to a lot of military who have they're active duty or they have retired here, and they say without a doubt of all the duty stations they've been to, that this community has reached out and embraced them better than anywhere that they have ever been. But are there other bases, like San Antonio has 4 bases?
Yeah.
Benning, are they having these issues?
Well, the bases that are having this issue. We've had 11 suicides this year on Fort Campbell. But here's what I'm going to tell you: they are having those issues. But the only reason it's here is because we decided to take action at this base. Now, here's what I can tell you: Fort Lewis has had the issues. Fort Bragg has had the issues. The bases that they got the infantry divisions. Hawaii's had the issues, and so has Alaska's had the issues. You read the Army Times, and you just do some research on it. But here's what I can tell you: is I have never been more proud to be a retiree, because you can get out of the Army as a retiree, but you can't get the Army out of the retiree. And I always feel connected, and so that's why I'm saying I'm glad that the generals have decided to pay attention to this. I got many colonels that are friends of mine on this base who have known me. I got friends today that are generals who I was their squad leader or their platoon sergeant, And throughout the years, they've got promoted. And here's what I can tell you is that they really care about these soldiers. It's a different generation. They're coming in for college education. Some are coming in just to grab that college fund, but then suddenly they find themselves in the face of war. But here's something different. Women are being killed at a higher rate now. And so, this is not the infantry soldier facing the death threat. It's the common supply sergeant.
You alluded to this earlier, and I do hear this, and it is a fact. And it is an all-volunteer army. And everyone has their own motivation as to why they join any branch of the service. And with the numbers of what's going on in the Middle East and with the personal struggles that the military is having, we do voluntarily get involved in this for whatever reason. For a job, for to get a paycheck, for the benefits. The educational benefits are phenomenal. That's not that big a deal to you. Let me rephrase it. Not that big a deal. I mean, they know going in what the risks are. They know going in, and that is a fact. But like anyone else, we all need help. We all need encouragement. We all need support, no matter what we're doing. I mean, even running a radio station or being a pastor at a church, I don't see how pastors do what they do. On call 24/7. You hear so much. Sometimes you've got to feel absolutely at your wits' end as to what to do, what to say.
Well, you talk about the volunteer force. I came in when it was volunteer force. The draft, during the draft era had ended in the 70s, and many of those that were drafted ended up staying in. They tell me about how it was a better choice than going back home to poverty. But our economic downslide has provoked a lot of our men and women to sign up, and sure, they do know that what they're about to get themselves into, and that's what makes our Army so great. We treat our soldiers with dignity and respect. And I'm speaking as an enlisted member. You get on these talk shows and you got all these officers speaking. You got all them, but you need to hear it from the heart of an enlisted soldier, an infantry guy like myself, who's been in the trenches and here's the heart. But now I'm on the outside. I've been retired for all these years now, and when I get these soldiers to come into my office and I talk to the colonels and the sergeant majors, and they tell me their heart. They tell me their heart, and here's what I know is they love what they do and they're going to support the country and do it all. But yet these soldiers know they are volunteering and the stress that comes with it.
Tommy Vallejos, our guest. We're going to talk about hope in just a moment. We're going to talk about today's event over at the Riverview Inn. It's an all-day health screening and seminar, vendors for women's health. I think everyone's involved or everyone's invited, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. How you can help, and if you have a call or a comment for Tommy, give us a ring. We'll be right back. 11 minutes away from 9 o'clock. Beautiful day out this morning, and certainly hope you're off to a great start. Welcome to Clarksville In Review. I'm Hank Bonecutter. Our guest is Sarah Tommy Vallejos, and we could cover so much, but we just don't have the time. We do want to talk about the Hispanic Organization for Progress and Hope, which you've heard so much about. Tommy's been very instrumental in that organization. Hasn't done it alone, but they're also hosting a Women's Day event over the Riverview Inn today. Tell us about it.
Well, first of all, our women organization in Hope, our branch of it, is hosting a women's conference in partnership with the City of Clarksville, AmeriChoice, and Matthew Walker Clinic. And this clinic today is to close out Women's Health Month. We're focusing on all about women. We're going to have clinical screening. There's going to be a lot of some classes on marriage, and then how self-esteem. Also, maybe how to prepare yourself and dress for success. Then we'll have some folks there all day giving these classes, and then simultaneously there'll be booths all around, just talking about women's issues. And I think this is an important part. I think sometimes we forget that. Hope, we got an office down in Strawberry Alley, and we started a group for parents, and it's all been women now on autism. Hope has an autism support group, and we found out there ain't too much of that going on. So Hope's focus is always to reach out to the community. We started off in 2002 by Juan Vasquez, the founder of our organization, and we thought we were going to address only Hispanic issues, but we have found ourselves in the fray of everything. We were getting ready to, in June, do a suicide prevention class along with the Tennessee Suicide Network. We're going to do some other things, but this is this one thing that Hope does. One aspect, it's our second annual Women's Conference, and we're looking for women to come. It starts at 10 o'clock this morning at the Riverview Inn. It's going to run from 10 to 3, and this is free. Can everybody say free?
Say it with me.
Free.
It's a free thing. What all will they be doing? What all sort of screenings we got going on?
Well, they're gonna be doing some screenings on cholesterol. They're gonna be talking about some of the issues. They'll be talking about self breast examinations. We're gonna have doctors there. We'll have nurses there. We'll have health facilitators there to address the health issues of women. And so these are all free. And then there's also we're gonna do some pampering. We want to encourage women. Some of these women need to be lifted up. Some come from abusive situation. And we're inviting them to come out. And then at the end of the day, after they've been educated, they've been given classes, they've had an opportunity to participate. Some are going to get some manicures and pedicures. And we're going to take care of massages. We're going to have massages there. Because we want them not only to get educated, we want them to go home, relax. And this is free, once again. And it's a great time. We appreciate the Riverview Inn, allowing us to go over there and host this event. And so we have partnered with Rita. She's going. Yesterday was her last day, but she's been a big supporter of ours also. And so we're doing great things, and I appreciate the mayor stepping up to the plate and saying, "We'll partner with you, Tommy."
You're a hard guy to refuse.
Oh
You're a hard guy to refuse.
You got to knock on a couple doors, man. It hasn't always been that way.
More and more people need to do that, obviously, and of course, any way that folks can help in their own little way is a great thing, and there's so many ways to do that. I wanted to get your thoughts earlier. You had said something about meeting. You're so insightful about our culture and our community and our country in this time of being so darn politically correct about everything. The Supreme Court Justice nominee, you said you had met her years ago. Now I want to know, is it more important, we've been through this with our president obviously during the campaign, is it more important that he has nominated a Latino than it is that they nominate someone who is qualified? And of course the argument started immediately about she's a woman, she's Latino, she is qualified or she's not, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on that? Much like electing a black president.
Well, the pundits are always going to be out there. The talking heads of the airways will be out there. Here's what I'll tell you is that I met her 2 years ago. I was at a speaking engagement in New York. She's a great person. She's a true rags to riches story. And there was a time when it wasn't proud to be a Latino or a Latina. And one little comment was taken out of the whole speech, and it was talking about Latina judges at a speech here in Berkeley. And so here they've taken it, from the Rush Limbaughs to all Gingers.
For reference, that could be better than say old white men making it.
Yes, and that's right. Well, Peggy Noonan, she's a columnist in the Wall Street. She said she's a conservative to the bone. She said, "Here we go again, shooting ourselves in the foot, not listening and taking something out of context and attacking the person and not the idea of where they came from." Here's what's so important. What I'm about to say is, I'm an American first, and I'm proud to be an American. I was born and raised in this country, and to some people I'll never be American enough because of my skin color. But I'm American first. I served this country, and if I would have died as a soldier in war, I would have died as an American soldier. Not as a Chicano, not as a Mexican, I would have died as an American. But here's the fact is that Latina girls have the highest dropout rate in America among gender and ethnic groups. What greater way than to say, hey, look what I've done. And here's a rag to riches. Her father died when she was young, raised in the Bronx, New York, a success story. And if you listen to the rest of the speech, instead of attacking it, these talking heads are going to destroy their own party. And so here's the important part is that there was a time it wasn't proud to be a Latina. You were looked down upon. And so, here we are, 45 million strong in our country, 15% of the population and growing. And we're not all undocumented here illegal. Many of us born and raised here. My family's been here since 1597. I got a city named after me. I've said it before, after my surname. So we're as part of the ingrained about the American culture. But what has happened that we can't say we're Irish, we can't say we're Latino, you can't say you're Scottish, and here a Latina who's somebody who's a rag to riches, encouraging other Latinas to finish education, and here she gets attacked. So Peggy Noonan said it well, the conservative columnist, and others have said it. Michael Steele, the head of the Republican Party, said, we're attacking a person before we even get the story. Even our leaders, the senators are saying this, we've got to stop this assassination.
Well, we understand how the party lines are drawn.
Yes.
All right. And I think most of us who follow news and this, that, and the other will understand that, the parties are never going to get along. here is the debate that I am confused about, and I think a lot of folks are confused about. And I mentioned it earlier when I talked about how you and I met. It's not illegal aliens, it's not Mexicans, we're Latinos, we're documented or undocumented, whatever. One of my best friends on the planet, as I said, was Chuck. Is Chuck and his family. I've known his family since they were born. His son's sitting in here today filming this show. I'm just trying to keep up with, you know, what's okay and what's not. For example, if the president had nominated a white man to be the justice, and her name had come up as a possibility, and this white man being nominated for justice said, you know, it's better that we can make decisions than Latino women, he'd have been burned at the stake. There are times when people say things that white people cannot say anymore, or should not say anymore, or get skewered for saying, because Latino is the way to go, black is the way to go, whatever, Indian, Native American. What is it this week? In other words, I don't mean anything by it. I don't want anyone to chastise me for how I said it. I didn't mean anything by it. But you know as well as I do that, they're focusing on that. I understand. And her decision on the white firefighters in New York, that stirs all that. I understand it. But if they nominate, you know, some, like Roberts, the Chief Justice, they nominate another white guy. You know, he gets up there and says, well, you know, I'm more qualified than, say, this Latino over here. My God, can you imagine?
Yeah, but here's the thing is, number one, she has more experience on the bench than any of those that are currently serving when they were nominated. She has more experience, more judicial experience on that bench than any of them. It's a proven fact. She has rendered more decisions on the bench, and out of all of them, only had 3 turned back by the Supreme Court. So her experience is phenomenal. I mean, she's been to the top colleges. So you can't even talk about the experience. Let's push that out now. Now, let's look at the fact that we're playing catch up when there was a time we were refused so many things.
Yeah, but when did we get into this game of catch up?
Well,
I'm confused.
There is no catch up. Right. But what I'm saying is, we're trying to get back to where I'm qualified now, and so because she has said I'm Latina, now we're focusing on that. There was a time you couldn't say you were Latino or I didn't qualify. I talked about Nancy Lopez this weekend. Nancy Lopez is a great golfer, raised in my city. She used to practice golf in this field in our city, in our barrio. We called it Chihuahuita, and we used to shag after the golf ball for a penny. And her story is she was not allowed to go as a woman and a Latino girl to go to our local country club in Roswell, New Mexico because of her skin color. Today she builds golf courses and they're begging for her to come. She builds golf courses with Jack Nicklaus and the like. But so what I'm saying is there was a time it wasn't okay to be the color of your skin. And so it's not about catch-up, but it's only what's right. And we have the education as Latinos. We have the experience. And we should have a say in the Supreme Court. And so let's say we don't nominate. So when will come the time? And so because now it's coming to, we're only doing it because of the color. That's wrong, Hank. And it's wrong for people to say that. And it's time that we, as Americans, quit looking at that. I'll just take the hyphen out and let's say American. But here's the political pundits won't allow that to happen. I'm more American than I am Indian. I would die for that red, white, and blue more than anything else. I don't wave the Mexican flag. I wave the American flag. But as an American, it's time that somebody of my ethnicity not be ashamed of what I was raised. Right. It's okay to be a Latino and not be ashamed of your culture. When does it come that you ought to be ashamed of your culture and you can't be American? That's what's happened. There's people who don't have a culture to celebrate, and because I do, you want me to stop? Wrong answer. Right. I am proud.
Well, there's no doubt. Man, I got you fired up now.
Well, I'm ready to preach.
Mark, can you come back next week? I'm just kidding. Hey, Tommy, we love you, man.
I know you do.
We love you for what you do here. I hope everybody will get a chance to meet you one day if they get a chance, because, my God, you can't miss him. He's everywhere. But come on out. You going to the Review Inn today? You be down
yeah, we're heading out there, make sure everything's set up, and then the ladies told me I have to leave. It's a ladies' event, you know. So.
Oh, I see.
And, you know, Caddy Johnson, talking about Mark, she's a board member of our Hope. We got a great board of members. We got pastors and professors. We got we got city council members. We are active in the city, and we love being a part, integrated. You know, we're just not a Hispanic community. We're an integrated community.
Right. Well, Tommy, thanks so much, and let us know anything we can do to help, and especially with the. I do need to get the connection you were telling me about earlier on post. We want to really get involved in that somehow if we can. So thanks so much for coming in, man. I love you. I appreciate it.
I know you do.
Tommy Vallejos.